Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another podcast. Thank you for tuning in today. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Martin. Um, I've talked to Martin before. We've had a very nice and long conversation, and we thought, why not record a podcast? Because Martin has some very cool insights into the creator economy, into copywriting, into life and work life balance, if you can call it that. We talked a little bit about that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today because I feel like that's a common struggle for a lot of us. But yeah, Martin, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself? Just a quick sentence or two.
Of course. Thanks for the intro. I'm Martin. I'm currently working as a ghostwriter and I guess coach and consultant for personal brands. I'm um, I'm on Twitter. It's the only platform that I'm currently on. I started some 7.5 months ago, and things kind of just took off. It was a bit random, but here we are. Was able to build my business with writing and with personal branding, and it's great now.
Yeah, a very successful business, if I understand correctly. So let's dig deeper into that. I want to learn more about your story. What inspired you to start this online business, and like what stepping stones you had along the way, what challenges you faced along the way. So take us through the journey from beginning to where
From
you are.
beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so I guess the beginning was like somewhere around high school, where you're kind of asked to like think what you want to do with your life, like when you're 16 or 17, which, like, if you think about it, it's kind of weird, right? Like, how is a 16-year-old supposed to like figure out what he wants to do with life, right? Anyway, like everyone was talking like, I want to do this, I want to do this, right? And like none of the options seemed that appealing to me, to be honest, right? Because I just never liked the idea of like being told what to do, right? And like working something where like you're working for others and not like for yourself, and like you're doing what other people tell you to do. Um, and I always like wanted to find like better ways to do stuff and like my ways to do stuff. And so it's a bit random, but when I was like in high school and like early days of college, I actually made my income by playing video games like professionally, right? Because like I was a big gamer, as like I'm sure a lot of the online entrepreneurs were when they were younger. So like that was my way of like avoiding having to get the job, right? I was just playing video games. But then at some point I figured like, okay, maybe this is not maybe not this is not the thing that I want to do for like the rest of my life, right? Because it just felt like it wasn't bringing that much value to the world. um, Eventually I got into like content creation, right? Because I was seeing all these people on YouTube, like, making YouTube videos from their, living room, and just having good life, making good money and all that stuff, and I wanted it for myself. So I started on YouTube, was posting YouTube videos for like 15 months. Yeah, it was like 15 months. Made $0 from that. And then I realized, okay, maybe it's not really working. Maybe it's
One
time to like
question.
try something else, because like my time was kind of running out at that point. I was like still studying college, but not really, right? um so I dropped out. Then I tried doing copywriting, because I came across it on YouTube. It just sounded cool, right? You just sit, you write words, you don't have to show your face, you don't have to speak on camera, right? It's like, I'm naturally very introverted, I'm not a native speaker. It just sounded like much better suited for me. So I was just, okay, let's just try doing copywriting. I did freelance copywriting for like a month. For like a month, then I came to X with the sole intention, I swear, of just sharing my journey, right? Nothing else. And somehow I just like ended up, building this brand and audience. And after first week on X, I'm like sitting at like 100 followers in like 7 days. Then like after 10 days, I'm sitting at 200 followers. After a month, 500. after 50 days at like 1K followers, and then it just kind of took off. People liked the advice. I gave a lot of it for free. Eventually started charging money for it. Eventually made full-time business in like 2 months, and then it went from there basically.
Okay, nice. One question: what were those YouTube videos about? I'm very interested.
Well, try to guess.
Probably gaming.
Nah,
Okay,
nah,
what's
nah.
that?
It was like self-improvement stuff, right? Because like I at the time where I started creating content, right? I knew that like I want to do something that like helps at least like some people, right? So like not just because I feel like a lot of people on YouTube like make the videos just for the sake of like getting the views, right? And like making an income. But at that point, it's almost like another job, right? Like sure, you're kind of doing it on your own terms and on your own time, but still kind of it feels a bit too like mercenary for me. We're just like doing this stuff just to make money. So like I want to do something that like helps people. So I was doing like like the usual self-improvement videos of like 20 year olds that don't really know what they're talking about, but then trying to make it. So it was just like productivity stuff, habits, quitting the addictions that I had and stuff like that.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who can relate right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's talk about your journey on X. You have some very rapid progress behind you when it comes to stuff like followers, getting attention, also just get building an income on the platform. So, I want to ask you about two things. What content strategy did you have back then that made you grow this fast? Do you think it will work nowadays? Because I think there's a lot of beginners who are probably wondering, like, they're not growing no matter what they do. So, what piece of advice would you give to them, or what have you done back then? And then I'll ask you the second question.
I think the first piece of advice would be to not look so much at like strategies and tactics and just look as deep as possible, right? So like look at the fundamental principles of creating content and building an audience, and just like ask yourself, okay, when I follow someone, when I interact with someone's content, like why is that? What makes me do it, right? And it's more often than not is because the person gives us some value, right? Now the word value is so overused that it kind of lost all meaning. So like the way I define value, it it can be education, right? As it very often is. It can be entertainment, which by the way doesn't mean you necessarily have to be funny, right? Just entertaining. I think there's a big difference. It can be excitement, so you just want to see what happens next, right? Or and it can be strong emotions, right? It's for me it's nice to remember because it's like four E's: education, entertainment, excitement, emotions. And like if you combine some of these, right, ideally as many as possible into your content, like people are going to interact with it, right? um and yeah, I mean that's it's like the basic, right? And obviously like you need to have something valuable, right, valuable to share. So like I think in case of Twitter, right, like for the most people that are watching, it's going to be some form of education, right? So they have some skill that they're either like trying to teach to others or they're like trying to sell it as a service. So it's probably going to be some education. So I would say that very often like the reason someone is not growing and they think it's because their like content strategy is wrong, like they're missing some tactics, but in reality it's just that they don't have that valuable of a content to share, right? And it's kind of hard to hear often,
Yeah,
and people want to look for like the shortcut, but very often it's what it is.
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, going back to the fundamentals is the most boring thing in the world, but it's also the most effective thing in the world usually. Uh, so I like that you mentioned that. However, I want to dig a little bit deeper because I've been reading your content, and I've got to say it's been one of the most valuable, entertaining profiles I've been following. I specifically like your like opinion tweets where you just share an opinion. I like that's just what I like.
Oh,
But
really?
there's, yeah, I mean,
I can do always more of that, right? Because it's just like enjoyable for me to rant.
I think a lot of people agree with me here. There's a lack of just genuine, like people giving their genuine opinions. And if someone's
Mm.
calling out the bullshit, which we all know there's a lot of, then
Yep.
that's a breath of fresh air. And I think that resonates with a lot of people and something I'm doing myself, or at least trying to do myself. So I want to ask you about your um, first of maybe now that we've talked about it, what do you think about the current space of this money X bubble, or you know what I'm talking about? This space of like people bragging about their income and then talking about my client made this much money and here's how you can do the same. What's your current opinion on that space?
I think, well, usually, like, it's a supply and demand thing, right? So like, if, if there's a lot of like certain type of content, then it's usually because there's like a demand for it. And I think we're always gonna have this type of people, right? Because as horrible as it may sound, like there's always going to be a lot of either young, desperate, or like, let's just say, not too intelligent people that are looking for like quick and easy ways to make money, right? And you can't really blame them because if you think about it, they're like in a lot of pain, right? They're like in a life situation which feels very very bad, right? Because I know, because I like been there, right? So you can't really, to an extent, you can't really blame them because when you open social media, you just get bombarded by this from like all sides. So what ends up happening, in my opinion, right, is first of all, like you think this is like the only way to go about it, right? From like the consumer's perspective. So you end up like following these people, interacting with their stuff, right? Buying their products, which like further supports them. And from like the creator's perspective, you see like everyone around you doing this, so you just feel like this is the way to go. And I think this is like even more dangerous, right? Because like the creators are the one that like have the power to do something about this, but it's so difficult, right? Like I've seen that in myself, that it's so difficult to like just stop yourself, even if you like consciously know that you don't really want to do this. Like you still subconsciously feel like you have to, like boast about your income every single day, or like you have to show off the Stripe screenshots every single day, right? Like I have a story for this. So at the end of last year, I was discussing like a four-figure deal with one of my clients, right? And we're both from Europe. So he offered to like make the payment via a bank transfer rather than like just paying through a Stripe link, which would mean that like if we count all the like processing fees from like having to like him having to pay like the processing fee for the Stripe, right? Me having to pay it and all that, it would mean that I get like 100 extra euro, right? Just because it's like straight up bank transfer, right? So it's like 100 euros, right? That's like not nothing. But like my first thought, like this wasn't like conscious, it was like instinctive. My first thought was that, oh, but then I won't have my Stripe screenshot, right? Like what if I hit 10k month? Like what if I get 10k in December, but I won't be able to show it because like this transaction is in my bank account, not on my Stripe. I mean, this is all happened in like half a second, right? And then I was like, what the fuck? Like what the fuck am I thinking about? I like it's completely insane if you think about it, right? Because I consciously like I consciously never would have made this choice, right? And in the end, of course, we did it via the transfer, but like you get almost like brainwashed by everyone doing something that you feel like you have to be doing it, otherwise you can't make it. So that's like my long rant on like the Stripe screenshots and the Manex. I'm not sure if you have like the same experience, because you've been here for longer than I have. So maybe you have something else to add to this. But that's my view in my like 7 months on X, right?
I mean, I think the problem that I have with this, it's been called pyramid, is that I think it gives a lot of people false expectations on what is normal. So they see someone making 10K per month in a matter of, I don't know, 4 months, and they think that's achievable for me. But in 99% of cases, that's not achievable for you, because either you didn't get lucky, because you didn't have the same starting point, maybe you don't have the same level of intelligence, which is a very important factor. Nobody can deny that. So I think it gives a lot of people false expectations on what is normal. And I've talked to multiple people who have quit because of this, because they thought, "Hey, I need to make money fast," when in
Yep.
reality that's usually not how it works. And I think it's very discouraging, especially for people who are very, say, let's say, introspective, or like, they have very high standards for themselves, and so they adopt the standards of others, thinking that they have to meet that level. And it's happened to me in the past where I thought I saw someone on the timeline bragging about their income, and I thought, why am I not making that? And then you always have to remind yourself constantly that they have probably been in this for longer. They just have a different skill set, or they've just invested more in their education, or they might just be more intelligent. And I think the real problem is that so many people are having false expectations and quitting because of those. And I think that's a shame, because a lot of people can provide a lot of value to the marketplace, but if they quit, then that obviously can happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's everyone's got to make their money, right? Everyone's got to make their living somehow. So I don't blame the people engaging in this activity. And I mean, I've done it myself, where I've sold like not X growth coaching. It always was a little bit more than that. But I was part of the so-called pyramid, which I think is kind of
I think it's
overblown.
like a bit different debate anyway, right? I think like the problem of like the false expectations and like the glorification of like income is like a broader problem of like just the online marketing or like the online business in general. I think like I mean we can talk about the X growth pyramid scheme if you want. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on it actually.
Yeah. Let me hear your thoughts first, and then I'll add my 2 cents.
Okay, so my thoughts are very simple, right? There's there are people on X whose business model is helping other people grow next, right? It's always going to be like this, and I mean I'm one of them, right? So I'm being self-reflective here, because if you think about it, like on every platform, like one of the most profitable like businesses that you could promote is like growth on that platform, right? It's the same on LinkedIn, it's the same on YouTube, right? Never really been on Instagram or like TikTok, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of like similar there, right? So there's always going to be a big group of like creators and people teaching this, because there's like infinite demand for this, right? Everyone on the platform can benefit from your service. Now, the way I personally do it, right, is I have like many offers for like different types of businesses and personal brands, right? So like I can either do it for someone with like the ghostwriting, I can do it in a consulting way, or I can do it in more of like a coaching way. Although I don't really coach people how to really grow next at this point anymore. I'm more focused on like coaching the skill of writing at this
Yeah,
point, right?
big difference.
But the problem is that there's a group of people, and it's like a lot of them, who do it in a way where like the only thing, like the only skill they teach, or like it's not even skill, right? Skill. The only thing they teach is like how to grow on X, but like the only people they're able to help is people who do the same thing as them, right? And what ends up happening naturally is that, like, let's say I'm a beginner, I come to X, I have no idea how any of this stuff works, right? I just want to like build my brand, and then someone um, shows me this like business model of let's call it like personal branding or like X monetization or whatever you call it, right? Basically, it's like bullshit anyway. So like what you call it doesn't matter because it's not the real thing, right? So like someone shows me this and I see that they're making good money, so I'm naturally like, okay, let me just buy from this person and they're gonna teach me, and now I'm gonna make income and it's gonna be great. I buy from this person, and what I realize is that the skill that they're teaching is just like just selling this to other people. And when you think about it, that's like the definition of you can call it pyramid scheme, you can call it whatever, but either way, it's like you're not creating any value because there's like no consumer at the like down level, at the like lowest level. And what ends up happening is that people at the top, it's for them it's great because they have like a lot of income, a lot of clients. Maybe like the second level of people, they're kind of getting by, but once you get down enough, you suddenly realize you have nobody left to sell to, right? Because you're like you're like there's no one more beginner than you are, right? So like you have nobody to sell to. And then like the whole thing kind of collapses because like the people on the second level are not able to get results for like their clients because below them there's like nobody these people could help. This is why this business model has usually like extremely high like churn rate, right? Like you're constantly need to get new clients because people just can't get results. And unfortunately many beginners like fall into this. um I kind of like fell into this, right? In my first couple of months, I had to be like very careful to stay away. And yeah, so that's my view. That's how I see the experiment, like how I would define it. Not sure if you had like the same experience.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. It's it's hard to differentiate between who's selling a skill and who's just selling the tactic, because tactics they change very
Yep.
rapidly. But the outcome is the same of the two, at least in the short term. The tactic will get you more followers, but the skill will also get you more followers. So it's hard to differentiate between who is just selling a tactic and who's selling a skill. I think
Mhm.
that's the real problem. It's hard to differentiate between who you can trust and who you cannot trust. But I mean, the people at the top of the pyramids, they're all very smart operators. They all know what they're doing, and I guess hat off to them.
I mean,
Um,
at some point, like you can't really blame. All right, like let's say I'm like one of the the big creators, and like you create a course or whatever. Like you don't really control who buys it and what they do with it,
Totally,
right? Like
yeah,
you can't really blame someone for like making a course where like they package their knowledge. But what ends up happening, right, is like someone buys the course and then just repackages, literally just like 0% original input. They just like repackage it and sell it as their own. And if you ever felt like everyone's advice on X is the same, this is why, right? Because it's all like repurposed, like couple of these big courses from like biggest creators just like repurposed. And this is why.
yeah. I recently posted about this. That is, like, X is a desert for creativity or critical thinking, I guess, where people just come up with their own ideas, their own unique ideas, and if you're just spouting out the same things as everyone else, then you don't really deserve to make that much money from it because you're not really being unique. You're not offering any value of your own.
Yep.
So I think it's just an ode to becoming creative and using your brain to come up with your own ideas, even if they might suck first. Like 90% of the ideas I come up with, probably more, they just suck. But among the shit, there's always some gems, and
Yep.
uh, but most people are not willing to forge through the shit to find those gems because thinking is very hard. Like I think your brain is the most calorically demanding organ in your body, so it will do anything in its power to stop you from thinking. and that's why a lot of people don't do it, and that's why a lot of people don't grow. They don't make any money, and that's a tragedy. It
I
is what it
also
is.
don't think it's only like about thinking. I also think it's about just like putting your ideas out there and risking being judged for it, right? It's
Yeah,
like it's I think like a lot of people think they're just like afraid to make it public.
that's a very good point. The fear of judgment. I think that's a lot of people have great ideas. They're just too afraid that they will come across as boring or inauthentic or whatever. Um, what's your solution to that? Have you found any solution to overcoming the fear of judgment, except for just
Yeah.
fucking do it?
Yeah, luckily this is something I solved like a very long time ago. Uh, so when I was starting on YouTube, right, I obviously like I had this thing, and then I came across this like psychological, I'm not sure what you call it, like concept that's called the spotlight effect. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, yeah,
Right. So I mean, there were like studies that basically proved that people like overestimate the degree to which others pay attention to them by like 300%, or like like we think others pay attention to us to like three times as much as they actually do, or something like that, right? I don't even remember the exact numbers. And then what I did was I just made a YouTube video about this thing, right? Like my first video on YouTube was like the spot, like I think it was called something like, yeah, I remember the title, right? It was called "Good News, Nobody Cares." Bracket, the spotlight effect explained, or something like that, right? So that was like my first YouTube video. It was 3 minutes long. It took me like 20 hours, to create, to edit everything. Uh, and I never really worried about it from that point on, because that's kind of how I work. Like if I want to remember a lesson like forever, I just teach it to somebody else, and then it like stays with me. Um, so yeah, I mean, for me, very often it's like once I get logical explanation for something, I kind of stop worrying about it, right? But I do need, I can't just saying, oh, don't care, like nobody really cares is not enough, right? But if you give me like data and like scientific experiment like proving it, then I'm like, oh, now it makes sense, right? It was the same with everything in my life basically.
okay, nice. I think that helps a lot of people. Just knowing that it doesn't really matter as much. And I think one of the most valuable skills as an entrepreneur is to have the ability to view the bigger picture. It sounds super cliche. Everyone's talking about it, but few people are actually practicing it. And I'm not practicing it myself most of the time. I oftentimes get lost in the details. Will this launch go well? Blah blah blah. When in reality, if you really look at how important this is to your 85-year-old self, this is like something Alex Hormozi's talked about, which I think is great. What would your 85-year-old self think about this? And if it's not really all that meaningful to them, there's no reason to worry about it now. So just a quick tip for everyone who didn't know that tip already. Okay, so going from the more broader topics, let's talk about something a bit more specific. Let's talk about your content strategy or your, let's say, distribution strategy for 2025. What's your plan there? Because I've seen you talk about how you will plan to make some changes. So walk us through that and walk us through your thought process behind these changes.
Yeah. So early days on X, right? My first couple of months, I was getting most of my traffic when it comes to business just from the platform itself. But going into this year, I want to really go like all in on my email list, my newsletter when it comes to this. Because first of all, it just kind of makes sense that every like if you call yourself a writer, that you should be probably writing like a newsletter. And second of all, it always felt a bit bad that posts on Twitter like disappear after 2 or 3 days into the void basically, and nobody is going to see them. Compared to like YouTube, for example, where you put out the video and it stays there for like the rest of the time. So it always felt bad to share like really valuable content on X, knowing that in 3 days like nobody is going to see it anymore. it's great for like testing your ideas on or like posting some real time stuff, right? Or like some small like pieces of content just to get the traffic and bring it further down your funnel where you can go more in depth. So that's kind of the plan. Use Twitter mostly to just get the traffic and then funnel it either directly to newsletter or to some long form content, which no promises, but I want to do the thing where like I write one blog post per week and then use it as a script for like a YouTube video. So I want to start doing YouTube because I think it's by far the best long-term platform that you can have. And like pretty much everyone with like a personal brand online should have a YouTube channel like at some point, right? It's not the best platform to start, in my opinion. Again, as my 15 months of not getting any results show. But I think once you do have some kind of audience, like YouTube should be in your plan at some point.
Definitely. I've uploaded my first YouTube video of the year yesterday.
Yeah,
It
I just saw
was
your email, right?
it was bad, but um, I'm 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 committed to uploading at least one YouTube video every single week from now on,
Yeah.
and over time you'll get better. I'm hoping at least.
Just as with everything, right? It's like,
Yeah, you start off a noob and then you get better over time. The first draft is always shitty. That's my mindset. Okay, so your plan is to lean more into your email list, which
yeah,
is fucking great. I'm doing the same thing because writing emails is just hella fun as well. Like, there's no downsides to having a bigger email list. How do you plan to get more people onto your list? Is there any specific types of content you're planning to use? Maybe some lead magnets you're planning to launch, or uh, yeah, what's your strategy for growing your list?
think again, I don't wanna get too lost into like the tactics. I think the overall plan is just create stuff that's worth sharing and like worth talking about. And basically, once you get to the point where like other people can start sharing your stuff for you, right, or like promoting your stuff for you, it's like a dream state, right? So I was able to kind of do that last year with like at some points where, for example, like I had a situation where I would get on a call with someone and they would tell me that, listen, I've been on X for like 3 days and like 20 different people have told me about you that I asked, right? Like who to like look for advice for like beginners, right? So um, at that point, you know you're doing something right, where like other people are talking about you, and they don't necessarily even have to like say, oh, go subscribe to these guys' emails, right? Like even just like someone mentioning you in like some of their content, right? Just casually, it adds up over time. So again, no fancy tactics, strategies. Even though I have some that I want to try. I don't think as advice it would be that helpful. It's just focusing on creating stuff that other people want to mention to their friends,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, it goes back to just becoming or posting valuable stuff. And yeah, I mean, if the product is great, then it will do the selling for
Yeah,
itself.
exactly.
Okay, interesting. Well, I personally would be interested in some of the tactical stuff because I'm neck deep into growing my own email list as well. So if you could mention just a couple of them, then that would be amazing for me personally.
Mm. So I think like podcasts are one of them, right?
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. So if if possible, like I wouldn't mind getting on a bit more podcasts. So I guess thanks for that. I think it's like valuable from both sides, obviously, right? Because like if you're the host, then like the guests promote you, and then if you're a guest, then like you get promoted by the host. Uh, and if you look at the podcast and we go a step deeper, as I always like to do, it's all just like having a relation, like good relationships with other people, building your network. So I think just strategically thinking about what other creators have the type of audience that you're trying to attract and share like the same values with you. To share like a couple of core skills, you know, that they're talking about all the time, the same topics, and then trying to build like genuinely good relationships with them. And you know, you can there's like a lot of also all kinds of stuff that you can do with that, right? You can agree to like promote each other if you want to be a bit boring. You can do some fun like product together. You can host a workshop together. You can do a podcast as we're doing. You can do whatever you want, right? Like once you have the good relationships. So that's probably like the biggest thing. And it might not be like the easiest because like naturally I'm not like the kind of person that's like
Yeah,
going to walk up to random like strangers and start a conversation, but it's part of the game, right? And if it's someone that like you genuinely would like to get to know, I think it's like worth getting over your you know just fear of talking to people or whatever.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, just a quick pro tip. Having a podcast is the greatest networking tip there is.
Yeah.
So, anyone who wants to start a podcast, please go ahead. And one thing, before I started my podcast, one thing I noticed is that almost everyone who owns a podcast in some way is a respected authority or
Hmm.
personality. So, I don't know if there's a correlation. I'm assuming there is. So, anyone who wants to start a podcast or just jump on podcast, then one of the best things you can do
I mean,
for.
you think about it, it kind of makes sense because, like, think about the depth to which we're able to go into podcast compared to like
Mm,
just random DM conversation, right? Even like email, which is much more personal than just DM conversation, it doesn't even compare to like the face to face conversation, right?
yeah, I recently realized something as well. I just one of the best things. I think we've talked about this already. One of the best things to do to become a better copywriter or to become a better marketer is to analyze your own buying behavior. And so
Yeah.
I sat down and thought about all the big products I bought last year. And one pattern I've noticed is that for every high ticket product cohort or coaching or course that I bought, there had to happen, like, at least two things had to happen, or like at least one of two things had to happen before I actually made the call and bought the course or the cohort or whatever. And that was I either watched a video of that person or I had a one on one conversation with that person. If those two factors weren't met, I wouldn't buy from someone. So that goes back to the YouTube point. I think YouTube is such a good platform because video builds trust unlike anything else. Even emails can't match that. Although I'm a big fan of emails. And yeah, having a podcast is that on steroids because it's long form. You get to ideate on camera and to just think about things, or talk about things that you otherwise wouldn't talk about, and that gives people a sort of bigger surface area, let's say, to latch onto something to identify with. So I think, yeah, video content. I'm all for it. So let's see how it goes this year. Okay, um, let's talk about more, like a broader topic. We've talked about this on our previous call, and that was our inability to switch off and stop working.
Here we
And
go.
a lot of people, especially in this entrepreneurial space, they are very much the same. You know the difference between type A people and type B people. Type B people tend to be more on the lazier side. You just need to give them a kick in the butt. And, it's probably most of the population. I'm assuming around like 60, 70%. But then there's type A people like us who have the exact opposite problem, who don't know how to switch off. And I want to know if you have some new ideas since last time we talked for how people can learn to let go of controlling as much as they want to and just trying to enjoy the journey more. Because in the end, that's what it's all about.
Oh, I'm horrible at this.
Same.
Uh, No, it's like one of my biggest goals for this year, definitely. And I'm working on this. I can tell you like what I'm trying to do, right? I'm just trying to. I think most of the time when you have a problem like this, it comes down to mindset. So like you have to have some kind of mindset shift before you even think about applying any tactics. What one of the messages that I think could help is think about, okay, imagine if you could only work for 2 hours every single day, right? It would you probably wouldn't get done as much as you do today, but it would force you to work on like only the most important crucial stuff, right? um which means that like there is a value in forcing yourself to do less, right? Because if you think about like the output per hour that you're getting, it increases. And then with all that remaining time, like you can enjoy life, and do some other stuff. So I think like there's this thing. I think it's called like Parkinson's law or whatever. That like work always like stretches to how much time you allocate to it. So I think like if you allow yourself to work like 12 hours every single day, you're gonna find the stuff to work on for 12 hours a day, right? But if you force yourself to be done at like at certain hour, then you're done, right? And then of course like there are probably going to be like periods where that kind of goes out the window and you're like working on a product launch or something like that. But I'm trying to approach it more from like the perspective of this is actually long term more productive. So I'm just going to like I'm going to see like shutting down as like a task to get done, right? Rather than, oh, it would be nice to have.
Yeah, it's funny.
It
Even like
is
we've talked about this before we started this podcast. Taking a break or not working is more work than actually doing the work in a lot of scenarios. Not always, but oftentimes.
often, yeah.
And it's quite funny that you mentioned that switching off is a task as well. I think I got this insight from Chris Williamson. The Greek word for I think it was something like the Greek word for labor is not at rest. So that implies that rest is like this, like the standard state of the
Mm.
human, I guess. And I feel like nowadays, not only for us but for most people, I think it's become the exact opposite, where work is our life and rest is just something, or leisure is just something to be stacked on top of that. And I think I wonder if there's a way to flip that around again and to just make leisure our standard state and to add work on top of that. I
I
don't know
think
if
it's
you've thought
also
about
like,
this.
yeah, I think important thing is like how do you define work, right? Because like a lot of people when they hear work, they just think, spending time to do some activity in order to like make money, right? um but I think work can be just like doing something enjoyable, right? That you just happen to make money with, which is like I think the ideal case, for
Yep.
anyone running a business. And at that point it's I think it's not even like working and not working, right? I think it's more of a case of like, like working on business, right? And then living life, right? So it's kind of like difference between like maybe that's not the best way to say it, actually, like working and living, because like if work is like part of your life, then it kind of is like enjoyable on its own.
It is living.
um
Yeah.
so I'm not sure, like as I said, I'm horrible at this, right? So I'm probably like one of the worst people that you could be asking these questions.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna say
no, but I'll definitely like try and find ways over this year, to figure this out, and just get done what I need to get done in less time, while like forcing myself to enjoy the rest of the life a
yeah.
bit more.
It just helps knowing that I'm not the only one who
Oh,
feels
you
that way.
definitely not.
No, I think there's a lot of people, especially among like successful or like people like us, moderately successful people. Okay, I want to ask you two more questions. One of them, I know you read a lot. I know you
Yep.
like to read books, and I want to know get to know about some gems that I can read and get my hands on as well. So, what are your favorite books? What are some books that you feel like everyone has to read in their lives?
Okay, those are two different questions, right?
That's true. Answer both of them.
Answer both of them. Okay, so I mean, I think for like the books that everyone should read, I feel like anything that kind of explains like the way our world works, and especially people and human psychology, is incredibly valuable because for some reason we are not taught this stuff in schools, right? And so, you know, as cliche as it may sound, I feel like how to influence and influence people, like if someone doesn't read that book and like or like doesn't apply the principles from it, then they're like playing life at hard mode. Um, and I think, I mean, uh, I'm like have my book stacked here, so I'm kind of like looking to see what would be like some of the stuff. I think this some of the books that I read, not even business related, but I think there are the books that everyone should read. Why We Sleep was a big one, just introducing the importance of sleep. There is the one that I'm reading right now. I can show you actually. Um, it's called Ultra Processed People. It's about like the ultra processed food and like the food industry in general, and like the it's science based, as the sleep one is, right? So I think some of these like completely fundamental stuff, right, that you're just not taught in school, I think everyone should read.
Yeah.
As for like the business ones, like some of the favorites, I always recommend the book Influence to people.
Oh,
I
so
think
good.
like for copywriters especially, it's like master it. And then for I think for personal branding, like a hidden gem would be The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene.
Mm,
I think that's
interesting.
such a great book if like you know what you're looking for, right? Like if you're reading it in like the business slash personal branding context, not only like in the romantic context or whatever, because there's like a lot of political um, angles there as well, and like a lot of the stuff from politics can be directly applied to like business and personal branding, right? It's like very similar. So I think that's the one that not a lot of people think about when it comes to this stuff. But I was very pleasantly surprised, and I'm gonna reread it actually, like very soon.
Nice. Haven't read that one yet, but Influence is so good. Love that
Yeah.
book. It's pretty long though. I actually have yet to finish it. I'm like 100 pages before finishing it, but it's so good. Okay, last question I have for you. What are your plans for the future? Is there anything that you want to put people on to make aware of? Yeah, tell us about that.
Plans for the future? I don't know. Maybe start a podcast. You know, after having conversation with you. But no,
Please do.
I'm just gonna like keep keep creating, you know, content, keep building products to just help people with their business. Um, I'm currently like I started slowly working on my first digital product, so that should be fun, and I'm just gonna try building my list right every single day. You know, start creating the YouTube videos, and hopefully like the big picture thing. I would like to contribute to like the positive shift in like the online marketing space, because I feel like it gets a very bad rep, and for like a for like a good reason, right? But I think there's a lot of good that can be done if enough people like spread the message, right? So like if I can be one of them, and contribute, then that's awesome.
Love it, man. Thanks for the conversation. Learned a lot. It was very fun.
It was,
And yeah, we'll probably do one again sometime soon.
of course.